If you compare beer with bratwurst,
and cheese with wine,
or even whiskey
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies,
missing persons,
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories.
And we're off to the races. The races that are podcasts. And this is a podcast where we tell true crime stories and we drink while telling them. And that's actually my beautiful wife over here, Katie, who tells the story and I listen. We'd be doing this anyway, whether we're recording it or not. We just decided to pair some drinks with her stories and tell them to you all. So we hope you enjoy. Katie, do you have a brief summary of what you're going to tell us?
On Monday, October 26th, 2015, Lee Antoni returned home from a weekend spent with his mother in Saskatchewan. Lee used his key to unlock the front door, and once inside, he was somewhat surprised not to immediately see his wife, Amanda. He did see their black lab, Ruby, who it was clear needed to be let out of the house. So, without noticing if he had to unlock the back door or not, he opened it and let Ruby into the backyard. Lee then proceeded upstairs to find Amanda, who he thought maybe could be taking a nap in the couple's bedroom. But Amanda wasn't upstairs either. So, with the basement being the only place left in the home where his wife could be, Lee went back to the main floor, walked through the dining room area, and turned the corner to the stairs, which led to the basement. At the bottom of the stairs, Lee was horrified to find his wife's body covered in blood in a scene that even seasoned investigators would describe as the most bloody they had ever seen. The gruesomeness of this scene would only be rivaled by the lingering mystery of what actually happened to Amanda Antoni.
Well, that sounds interesting. It also sounds like a lot of stories we've heard and told, where, it's the most gruesome scene, all that stuff. This is, I can already tell this is going to be a fun one.
What's a true crime story without a basement covered in blood?
Yeah.
Set in Canada, nonetheless.
I was about to ask. So Saskatchewan, I
think it's a province in Canada.
Somewhere, but I was thinking United States and I was thinking north, but I just didn't go north enough.
Oh, keep on going, buddy.
Yeah. Where's it by? You said it's a province?
I think it's a province.
Wow.
In Canada. Go ahead, look it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Canadian province.
Saskatchewan.
In between Alberta and Manitoba.
Oh, Alberta. That's
another province.
Yeah, but isn't that by Quebec? Good thing.
This is geography brought to you by Perfectly Paired With.
Not very great.
So Saskatchewan is north,
so
and
it's right
it's
above,
north between Montana and North Dakota.
Right
Alberta is west of there.
Yeah, it's right above Montana. Next to Alberta. I was about to say, isn't Edmonton and Alberta perfect? I usually go off of my hockey knowledge when it comes to any of the cities, which doesn't cover much of Canada, but that's the only way I can know. And then I know Toronto because of the Raptors, and Maple Leafs, of course. But anyway, excited for this. Sounds like a good story. Husband, right? Comes up.
Yep.
Or goes to find his wife.
Good old Lee.
Can't find her. Goes to the basement.
There she is.
And the basement's covered in blood.
Yes.
And he's like, what the fuck happened?
Yes, but you're jumping ahead.
And
there's an important step in Perfectly Paired With.
Yeah,
which is...
What year are we in on this one?
2015.
Oh, perfect. So probably going to blame the husband at first. We'll see. You'll tell the story. Anyway, I know nothing of this story as usual, except for the ones that I kind of know. You told me where it was.
Mm-hmm.
We're Americans down here. So when we think of Canadian drinks, we kind of just go to one. And I did go to that one.
Which he's going to say like it's a bad thing, but we've previously mentioned how this is my favorite.
Oh, that's true. We have mentioned
on a different. I love this.
And we actually were going to feature this on our last podcast for no reason at all, but we ended up drinking that before we filmed and recorded the podcast.
Oh, a different flavor of it.
Yeah. So we're going with, I guess there's two drinks I could think of, but the first one on my mind always goes to is Crown Royal. I guess the second one would be Molson. I know is the Canadian beer, you know. But Crown Royal, I mean, you don't get more Canadian than that when it comes to Americans' thoughts, when it comes to drinking. So had to go with that. I'm not a hater on Crown Royal at all. I actually think it's a delicious whiskey. It's not the best of them at all, but hey, I would 100% be just fine if you only had Crown when it came to whiskey and I was in the mood for whiskey. But we did go with a flavor, which I knew would make you happy because you're not like the most I want to drink straight whiskey type of girl.
Don't.
You will if you gotta.
If I have to.
And you will on a rare occurrence,
Crown.
actually.
I find it smooth and satisfying.
I'd say after we've been recording this for over a year now.
It's driven me to drink. Yes.
And every now and then you get into a whiskey mood, though. Like you'll be like, hey, what whiskeys do we have? At least twice in the last year that's happened. So we went with vanilla on this one. I went with vanilla because I knew that would make you happy because I remember the one or two times we ever had the vanilla, which was long
I can't
ago.
remember drinking vanilla Crown Royal.
I remember you liking it.
Let's give it a taste.
And I believe my sister, Stephanie, liked this one a ton and recommended it to us. And that's when we got it years ago. And it was really good. I did have a little bit last night and I remembered how good it was. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it. I'll go ahead and pour this.
Well, that was a shout out to Stephanie. Her husband, Shane, likes true crime podcasts. And I don't know if he actually listens to ours. So get it together, Shane.
Yeah, he recommended another.
I know he keeps sending me other ones to listen to.
Us, like, true crime podcast Shane. To us. I'm like, dude, ours.
Compliment ours. It's okay.
Cheers first.
I wanted to smell it. Oh, it smells really, really good.
Very vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Delicious.
That's so the other one we were gonna actually feature on our Chris Watts 3 was gonna be Crown Royal Blackberry, right?
Yeah, I think this is
which
better.
Sells out so fast. I had to get it because my buddy was over at the store, said, hey, they got them. He got us one. We ended up I mean, that one's good enough that we ended up drinking that in like 2 days.
This reminds me of a cream soda.
Yeah.
Like I am having summertime cream soda vibes. Like if this were on ice with a scoop of ice cream, holy smokes.
And if I'm
soda float.
If I'm gonna pick a favorite pop or soda, depending on where you're at, or soda pop, I would pick Dr. Pepper over everything, which has a little bit of that vanilla in it. But the next right after is AW cream soda. Can't beat it. Or any, small cream soda maker. Always amazing. You can't go wrong with them. This does remind me of cream soda, which for our listeners, we are going to do just straight Crown Royal vanilla. And then in a little bit, once we get rolling, we're going to go ahead and get a Coke out for it and throw some vanilla and Coke, vanilla Crown Royal and Coke together. And my guess is that's going to come pretty close.
I think it's going to be delicious.
Like a cream soda or, well, there is Coke and a vanilla Coke, which is really good too. Anyway.
Well, a Canadian whiskey, vanilla flavored, is perfectly paired with a Canadian true crime story flavored with a sense of mystery. So Amanda Antoni was born in Calgary. She was raised in a place called Carstairs by her foster parents, where she lived with her two brothers. Eventually, Amanda would be adopted into the family. Amanda and Lee met in 2005. Then in 2009, the couple got married. And from that moment forward, they were inseparable. Until the weekend Lee spent away to be with his mom, the two had never even spent one night apart after their marriage. To make ends meet, Amanda started her It's just smooth vanilla in my throat.
That's what she's like.
Amanda started her own home cleaning business. Lee, on the other hand, well, he never really could keep a job. It was perhaps this lack of consistent income that factored into where the couple was living in 2015. Castle Ridge, which is located northeast of Calgary, had a higher level of criminal activity than the rest of Alberta, which is the province west of Saskatchewan. Break-ins, assaults, and shootings were not uncommon. There also was a larger transient population in the area than in other parts of the province. Behind the couple's home was actually an alleyway, and it wasn't uncommon for members of that transient community to let themselves in through the back gate in search of bottles and cans.
When you say transient, that's just folks from other cities in Canada?
I think it's a nice way to say homeless. They kind of move about.
Yeah.
They're not settled in one location.
Gotcha.
That weekend in October, Lee and Amanda actually planned to travel together to Saskatchewan. It was the anniversary of Lee's father's death, and the couple wanted to spend it with Lee's mom. But before leaving, Amanda developed a severe migraine, and because of that, she decided that she should rather stay home. Migraines weren't super common for Amanda, but when they did occur, they were very, very painful for the 31-year-old. So early Friday morning on October 23rd, Lee set out to make the 8-hour drive to Saskatchewan where his mom lived. The couple texted back and forth consistently the entire time they were apart up until Saturday evening, which would have been the 24th. That evening, the couple was talking on the phone at around 7 p.m. During this call, Lee heard Ruby the dog bark, and then Amanda shout, "Shut up, Ruby." Then Lee hears Ruby yelp, after which the line went dead. Lee tried calling Amanda back, but the calls went straight to her voicemail. And the next day, Lee tried texting his wife several times, but his texts never received a response.
And Lee was where?
In Saskatchewan with his mom on the anniversary of his father's death.
And she was
at home.
In Alberta?
8 hours away. By Sunday night, after not hearing from his wife, Lee decided that he would head home early the next morning, which he did, leaving at around 8:30 a.m. Lee made it home at around 3:45 p.m., and after finding his wife's bloody body in the basement, Lee immediately called 911, and I have that recording.
Calgary.
Ambulance, police, or fire.
Oh my God, all.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
I don't know. And I just came home and I found my wife downstairs and there's blood everywhere.
Are you with now?
There's so much blood. No, she's cold.
I'm sending help. I'm sending someone to assist you.
Jeez. That was a rough listen. That man did not kill his wife.
That's presumptive off of a 911 call.
I don't think there's any actor that is that good. Like, I mean, I'll hand it to the Mendez brothers when they did their call. That was pretty damn good. That's probably one of the best.
You think Lee
I've heard.
Antoni is better?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
That one was like a husband found his wife in the basement, murdered with a bunch of blood. He didn't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah, well, if you watch any of his, like, I don't want to call them interrogations, his interviews with officers, he is a mess ball.
Which, look, everybody handles trauma like that differently. So who knows how you're going to act. But I think the general opinion from people would be that's how you would react.
Well, let's see where the story takes us.
Let's see it. You said there's a lot of mystery here, though, so I'm assuming he wasn't fully penned.
He did at the end. Cheers. Now, upon entering the home, officers noticed that a chair in the dining room had been knocked over onto its side. Amanda's cell phone was also found lying on the floor in the dining room, broken with a cracked screen. And on the ledge in the wall along the basement stairs, there was a broken ceramic piggy bank. The face of the bank was broken off, and pieces of the pig's face were scattered on the descending stairs. There were no signs of forced entry, nor were there any signs that robbery was the motive. Both Amanda's keys and purse were found on the dining room table. Almost the entire basement floor was covered in blood. There were blood pools, stationary blood drops, and blood smears. In fact, in the photos taken at the scene, there is so much blood everywhere else that you can see the outline of where Amanda's body had lain. In addition to the multiple blood pattern types on the floor, there was blood on the walls as well. On 2 different basement walls, there were significant blood stains right around the shin, knee level of your average adult. Now, to understand exactly how much blood was in the basement, you need to see photographs. So I'm actually going to share a website with you, which contains photographs that were presented in Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries, which I think are the best representatives of what that basement floor looked like. So I'm going to send that to you.
Just airdrop it to my computer.
I love that you say things like, can you just airdrop it to my computer? Like that's something I would know how to do. No, because it's a website.
Yeah, you could do the same thing.
Okay,
right at the
on.
top. I'm literally on a website. I'm looking to the right.
Okay.
And there's a square
Click
box.
on the 3 dots. Just let me do it how I want to do it.
And then there's airdrop. No, you're on a website.
Mm-hmm.
Are you on Safari or Chrome?
Bro.
Oh, you are just
wait. I can do this without you.
What kind of Mongol are you?
The best kind of Mongol.
Using the Chrome
over
Safari.
So click on the link and scroll down and take a look at these photographs of the scene.
What more evidence? Oh, blood pattern analysis.
Yeah, click on that.
Or personal photos. Blood stains.
Blood stains.
There it is. Ooh. It's a lot of blood. We'll share this with you guys. Definitely a floor. It's like a floor, tons of blood, but somebody was moving a ton on top of that blood. Like slipping, sliding on top of the blood. Oh, I see what your description with the like deep blood marks, like the droplets.
Yeah.
Almost like somebody was like
Well,
there for a second and
All right.
a lot pooled out. Oh yeah, there's the outline. You could like see where she laid.
Yeah.
But it's like she moved so much.
There was significant
there's
movement
sliding,
happening.
slipping and sliding throughout all the bloodstains.
All right. So pieces of the ceramic piggy bank were recovered from Amanda's forehead, making investigators confident that the piggy bank was the weapon used by the perpetrator. In addition to the wounds on Amanda's head, there were bruises on her body as well. And when taking into account the amount of blood in the basement, Officers were beginning to think that Amanda was the victim of a severe beating. Also, Amanda's pants had been pulled down just below the buttocks area, making investigators suspicious that she also could have been the victim of a sexual assault. Now, upon seeing the scene in the basement and the state of Amanda's body, the officials felt confident that what they had on their hands was a homicide, and a brutal homicide at that. Now, investigators set out early on to determine if Lee had anything to do with his wife's death, which is common in a suspicious death of a spouse. But after confirming Lee was, in fact, in Saskatchewan all weekend, and the lack of evidence of any history of domestic violence or turmoil in the marriage, Lee was cleared early on of any suspicion. This left investigators with the task of finding other suspects who were capable of causing Amanda so much physical harm. After talking to Amanda's neighbors, a couple reported hearing Ruby barking pretty aggressively on Saturday evening at around 7 p.m., and that barking was followed by yelling coming from Amanda's home. Another neighbor that night said they saw someone running through a backyard, but there's some confusion as to whose yard this person was actually running through. It was either Amanda's yard or another neighbor's yard, with the implication that it still could have been someone connected to Amanda's attack. However, since there was no forced entry, no one saw the likelihood of Amanda allowing someone unknown into her home. And so officials didn't take too much from these two reports. And since Lee could not remember if the back door had been locked or unlocked when he let Ruby out after returning home, officers questioned the likelihood of someone with malicious intent simply taking a risk on one random night when Lee wasn't home and wandering into Amanda's house through an unlocked back door.
I imagine most people don't lock their doors in these areas. I mean,
I think most do. It's like a super high crime area.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just hear of Canada and it's like, we don't lock our doors here. Outside of like giant cities.
Don't you know we don't lock our doors?
Don't you know?
They're not Jamaican.
Don't you know? We don't lock our doors. I don't know. Where did that
I don't
go?
know what that is.
Awful. I can't do the Canadian accent. I don't know. I can do like just a little tiny portion. Like, I don't know. I just think of Minnesotans and how they talk.
Don't
like
you know?
Fargo. Don't you know? I can't even do the don't you know. There's a word or two I can say, but I can't remember which ones those are. I am awful at the Canadian accent because it's just like so close to ours. It's just not. It's not quite different enough. But our brother can do a really good one.
We have lots of brothers.
Our one down the street.
Oh, okay.
Your brother-in-law. He can do a really good.
Well, he should have been on.
Yeah, it's fun to listen to him and his cousin just riff on it.
Oh, how funny!
But I don't know. It's the neighbor thing too. Like, what is with neighbors not? I don't know. Maybe, and this is just me, and I've mentioned this before, but I'm paying attention to shit around our house, and if I see something suspicious, I somewhat investigate. Like anytime there's something weird, like we had a car stopped in front of our house the other day.
But you didn't call the police.
No,
you know what I mean? You made note of it. And maybe that's what these neighbors did.
But if you're seeing somebody run through a yard, I'm going to know whose yard that is. I don't understand how you don't. You're like, well, it might have been that yard or that yard. Unless you're really drunk. Yeah, it might have been the case.
Those Canadians and their vanilla creme royale.
Yep.
Now, Lee did provide a possible suspect. He and Amanda had reported Lee's own sister to Child Protective Services at some point because she was pretty heavily involved in drugs. And that report resulted in Lee's niece being removed from her mother's custody. Lee's sister did not mince words about how she felt about the couple afterward, even at one point threatening Amanda. But after being seriously interrogated...
You put that in quotations?
Yeah. Investigators felt confident that Lee's sister was not responsible for Amanda's death.
Okay, so the sister has issues. She gets her removed, or gets the niece removed.
Mm-hmm.
But the police are like, hey, we've talked to her. She definitely did not do this.
Yeah, I think for it to make any sense, it wouldn't have been her. Because I don't think that Amanda would have let her into the home because they knew, like, she didn't really like Amanda.
That makes sense.
So
and that was my immediate thought.
Have hired somebody else.
Yeah.
But we're going to look at some lack of evidence moving forward to suggest that there probably wasn't somebody else in the house.
All right. That's good to know, like, what the police thought was, because my immediate thought goes to Amanda knew whoever this was, like, because of no force of entry, nothing outside, even using the piggy bank to hit her. Also, I meant to ask, is the piggy bank cuts the only wound she has outside of bruises?
We are going to talk about that, but that we can't talk about that quite yet.
Okay. But it does, from what you've told us so far, it does seem like she likely knew whoever it was.
If she let them in, and she wouldn't have let Lee's sister in. That's how, like, volatile her response was to Lee and Amanda.
And I feel like I need to expound on why I think that.
Police people.
Right. Because if the door was unlocked and somebody came in, obviously they could do whatever they want, but still it's kind of a weird thing to smash the piggy bank on somebody's head. That to me seems like somebody's having a conversation with her, and it was like the first thing they did.
But even that, the positioning of the piggy bank on these stairs to the basement, where Lee later says that his wife hated the basement. She thought it was creepy. She didn't want to go down there. There'd be no reason for Amanda to be standing on the basement stairs, even with this sister intruder, for them to have an argument there. It's a very strange... The piggy bank was sitting on this ledge. And so...
On a ledge by the basement.
Yeah, so I thought about how I was going to explain this to you. We have divided basement stairs. One that goes this way, we have a landing, and one that goes this way.
Yeah.
And there's a ledge, like, in the wall.
Yeah.
That
we could
ledge,
put like a tiny like vase on it.
They had that ledge in the stairs leading down.
So it's like somebody forced her going down the stairs, or she was getting away from somebody to go to the basement, a place that she doesn't like.
Well,
something like that.
In my telling right now, we've had one suspect, the sister, and police say she didn't have anything to do with it. Now, when Lee discovered his wife's body, he noted that Amanda was wearing a rather fancy pair of underwear for just an average day at home, which led police to speculate that perhaps Amanda was having an affair and it was this individual who had harmed her. But I need to be clear that maybe it's the Canadian, like, scale of hot underwear, but it literally was like a Hawaiian print bikini brief that she was wearing. It wasn't like some lacy, silky, sexy G-string.
Look, I don't know. That's kind of strange. Maybe that's how they are in Canada, but
it wasn't brown chicken, brown cow lingerie.
I want you wearing sexy underwear no matter what you're doing. I don't care if it's, you're going to go clean the bathroom. That's weird. That's controlling. I don't understand that at all. Why are you wearing such...
I don't know, maybe
Especially in the house. Like,
so you and I used to watch Flight of the Conchords, and they had business socks, or what was it? They had a song about wearing business. Maybe those were her sexy time underwear.
I feel like it wasn't socks, but maybe it was. But you're right. There was I got my business, whatever. They made a song on
living
it,
in a low income area. It's not like she's buying risque lingerie. Maybe that was something she put on because she knew her husband liked it. And maybe
exactly. And then the husband questioned it. Like,
well, why she was wearing it on a Saturday night when he was 8 hours away in Saskatchewan with his mom.
Well, how do you know? They did a FaceTime or something? What?
He found her body.
Oh, and then he questioned.
And then he was like, she's wearing the sexy time underwear.
Jeez Louise. Dude.
Well,
why
would
you voice those thoughts? Goodness gracious.
After searching things like phone records and even reading Amanda's journal, there was zero evidence that Amanda had another man in her life.
Yeah.
Now, these investigative dead ends left officers with one hope, that the answer to who killed Amanda would be found in the physical evidence inside the house. Now, crime scene investigators began by dusting for fingerprints on the doors. Unfortunately, no fingerprints were recovered from the doors or anywhere else in the home, including the basement. In fact, the ceramic piggy bank, which was also dusted for prints and was suspected of being the murder weapon, not only had no fingerprints on it, but the dust, which had settled on its surface, remained completely undisturbed. Investigators also collected multiple blood swabs from the basement. They had pretty strong feelings that the perpetrator's DNA had to be somewhere in the mess of blood. They were particularly hopeful about the stationary drops because those would have come from an individual who was in a standing position, not from someone sustaining a severe beating on the floor. And Amanda's brothers were confident that had she been attacked, their stubborn fighter sister would have fought back, only increasing the likelihood that during the attack, the attacker must have sustained injuries. However, when the results returned, all of the blood in the basement came from the same source, Amanda Antoni, including the stationary drops on the floor, indicating that at some point, after sustaining at least the initial injury, Amanda had the physical ability to stand and move about the room. Now, crime scene investigators noted 12 different impressions in the blood. Most of the impressions appeared to have come from bare feet. Amanda's body was barefoot, and in the mess of blood on the floor, investigators recovered 2 slippers belonging to her. There were no shoe prints identified at all. On a floor, completely covered in blood, not a single shoe print from the person seemingly responsible for the attack was left. There were swipe marks as though someone tried to cover up their tracks, but then what? The perpetrator took their shoes off before walking up the stairs, and there's not a single drip of blood anywhere else in the house.
And it's all her footprints?
All her footprints.
And the slippers being around, what significance does that have?
That at some point she had slippers on her feet, and then she took them off to move about the room.
But there's no
barefooted.
There's no slipper prints, so I mean, they could have been. Those slippers could have
cast
been
off.
Well, the slippers could have been wherever they were for days. I don't,
but she didn't want to go in the basement. She never went in the basement. She thought the basement was creepy. Now, Amanda's time of death was determined to be around 7 or 7:30 on Saturday, the 23rd. Her cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma, but that led to exsanguination, which is bleeding to death. There was no actual damage to her brain at all, which could have led to her death. She literally sustained the injury to her forehead and then was simply in the basement until she lost enough blood to die.
So she got hit by a piggy bank.
A
in the
piggy bank,
head.
a piggy bank that had no fingerprints, and the dust on its surface remained completely undisturbed. Hang on to
My
it.
brain's having a hard
Now-
time tackling this. Hold on. Let's actually take a break there. I'm
We're
going to
going to make
grab
a
us some
vanilla
Coke.
Crown and Diet Cherry Coke. That's what we drink around
I need my
here.
next drink for this part. So, yeah, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We got our drinks. We've done Coke with Crown Royal vanilla.
It's actually Cherry Coke. So it's a vanilla cherry.
Oh, it does say cherry
Mhm.
up there. I didn't see that. It's like
It's quite
hidden
good.
on top.
Yeah. I'm a basic biatch. I like the Crown. I like the Coke. So any version of the Crown and any version of the Coke is okay with me. And I think Canadians would say any version of the Crown is okay with them. So
Yeah.
just a little America speaking.
Well, hopefully
Our northern counterparts.
listeners didn't hear my phone going off for ESPN Fantasy. I don't know why it's doing that. Should
okay.
not.
Now, jumping back in, despite appearing to have been beaten horribly, there were no skeletal injuries to Amanda. The only broken bone she sustained was a fractured orbital bone to her face. In fact, despite the head wound, there was no actual damage to the skull, indicating that the blow to the head was superficial and wasn't as extreme as one would expect had it been inflicted by another individual.
Now, I know, especially on the forehead, any superficial cut you get can bleed a shit ton. Pro wrestling used to use this back in the day. They would, get a little razor or something to cut a little bit, and it would just dramatize the performance because just blood would be everywhere. You see it. UFC. It's not. There's a little more than superficial, but we've seen fights where
the capillaries in the head
blood
are
goes
a lot
everywhere.
closer together than in other parts of the body.
Yeah.
So when they sustain injury, there is a bit more bleeding that takes place.
And honestly, when I'm looking at these photos of the blood in the basement, it literally reminds me of a UFC fight
On the
mat.
yeah.
When they're, wrestling and fighting with all the blood going everywhere. And then you see the mat afterwards. The pictures remind me quite a bit of that.
Now, with this utter lack of evidence that
Blood.
yeah.
I'm still looking. I'm like, but there is some big pools of blood there too.
Yeah, but I will tell you this, the people in the UFC who are bleeding like that aren't at risk for exsanguination, which is what is alleged to have killed Amanda.
Right. That's why
nobody's
the
exsanguinating.
doctors will come and look and be like, all right, you can keep fighting. You're
Now,
not bleeding that much.
With this utter lack of evidence that another human being had something to do with Amanda's death, investigators decided to turn their focus to Amanda's death possibly being an accident. So they brought in a biomechanic expert who did determine that it was possible, although remotely, that Amanda tripped over, let's say, the dog Ruby, and then she fell headfirst into the piggy bank, which was pushed back into the wall, creating a small indentation in the wall surface, which was noted in photographs. And then Amanda fell down the stairs, causing the bruising to her body, despite her young age. And then in the basement, from the gash in her forehead, it was deemed possible for Amanda to have simply bled to death. And on December 13th of the year 2016, the Calgary Police Department concluded that the death was an accident, despite the manner of death remaining undetermined for legal record purposes. But this accidental explanation does not account for everything at the scene of the accident. For one, it does not explain the overturned chair, nor does it explain the fact that her phone, had she been on it when she tripped over the dog and fell down the basement stairs, was lying roughly 8 to 10 feet from where she would have first fallen. There also was a basket of laundry and a bag of shopping on the basement stair landing, and neither of those items were disturbed by her falling body.
Was the laundry washer and dryer in the basement?
I don't know. I don't think that mattered.
The only reason I ask is, the shoes being down there, the footprints. If they're laundry, which in a lot of older ranch homes, anywhere.
It wasn't a ranch because they had an upstairs.
Well, older homes is in the laundry.
In Canada,
in the
you know
basement.
about old homes in Canada?
Yeah, I've watched Property Brothers long enough to know about homes in Canada.
Okay, so let's just say that she was on the phone, sitting in this chair in her dining room, and she quickly stands up while on the phone to tell Ruby to be quiet because Ruby is barking at, who knows, the human being running in the backyard.
But there's the yelp.
And for some reason, she decides that she would rather drop her phone in order to grab the falling chair, and neither of which she grabs, and they fall to the floor. Now, the location of the phone doesn't actually match that telling, but let's just say that's what happened. Then she gets up to find Ruby, whom she finds at the top of the basement stairs. She trips over Ruby. Ruby yelps, and then Amanda what? She falls face first into a piggy bank, breaking it, getting pieces stuck in her forehead, in a superficial wound because there's no actual damage to her skull or her brain. And then she what? Falls down the stairs and then flails about in the basement, getting blood absolutely everywhere, including 2 different walls. And then at some point she stands up, but is too disoriented to find her way to the stairs to get her back upstairs. In what world does that happen?
Well, let's say, okay, she's not by herself. There is an intruder.
No, this is the accidental explanation.
Sure.
You can talk about the intruder after we completely debunk the fact that this woman
I think you could
dropped
still
a phone, knocked a chair over, walked 10 feet to the stairs, tripped over a dog. The dog yelps. Somehow it's heard across the room. She falls face first into a piggy bank, falls down the stairs, and then flails about for 30 minutes, getting blood everywhere. We have to address this accident theory before you can give me another one.
No. But I'm going to say this can still be an accident, but somebody else is involved. Let's just say she's on the phone. Somebody walks in the back door going to rob the place. There's somebody there. There's somebody home, which is her. The intruder kind of is like, oh, fuck, just walks kind of towards her. Like, what else am I going to do? She freaks out, drops the phone, chair tips over, like her hands on a chair tips over, walks backwards, trips over the dog which sends her down the stairs, hits her head. The whole thing plays out in the accidental
and then
way.
Why does blood get everywhere in the basement?
Because of how many cuts were on her forehead.
Superficial cuts to her forehead are going to keep her flopping around the basement long enough that she exsanguinates and gets blood absolutely. At some point, she stands. She's capable.
Yeah. And I
then
think
she
she's
just
trying
lays
to walk
back down.
If you look at where like the droplets are,
you should wait because there's a piece of
'cause
evidence.
it seems
that's
like
going
she's trying to walk back
change
upstairs.
everything
but
you're
there's
saying.
no blood on the stairs. She never quite gets there.
All right, here we go.
Maybe the person intruding just watched her do this whole thing. She tries to get
and
back
takes
up the stairs,
absolutely nothing from the
just,
home,
kicks her in the chest. Yeah,
and then
he doesn't.
leaves. Okay.
He's like, I don't want to get
All right,
caught.
here we go.
This is not what I came
Okay,
here for.
here we go.
I wasn't coming here for murder.
Also,
All right, the exsanguination from cuts on your forehead, I do agree, is far-fetched. Is it impossible, though?
okay,
That's what I want to know.
Let's have this conversation. Also, at the base of the stairs, inches from the bottom step, facing the staircase, were 2 bloody footprints as though Amanda stood, bleeding to death, no broken bones or internal injuries making it difficult for her to move, and she never ascends the stairs in search of help.
Yeah, I saw that picture on the pictures that in the link that you showed.
Now,
And that's where all those like the dark droplets of like somebody was standing.
those are over to this side. So she stands over here, bleeds drops of blood. She walks over, is literally standing. All she has to do is take a step, and she's on the bottom step.
And there's
And
no
she
blood found on the
never does
stairs.
it. Do you know what else is interesting? Is there are no dog prints in the blood on the basement floor. There's actually even another source, which these cats aren't mentioned in the Netflix Unsolved Mystery, but they had 2 cats.
They had 2 cats.
And there are no animal prints in the blood.
Is the door
in the basement.
closed to the basement?
There's
when
no
Lee gets
there's no
there?
door.
There's no door.
It's just an open space, a landing, and they go down.
So there's just evil in the basement that the
Well,
animals know to
so
keep away from.
it makes me wonder what person could have remained in the house, leaving no trace of their presence, frightening enough that Amanda would rather exsanguinate in the basement, and frightening enough that protective Ruby, who's going to bark at the presence of other people, won't actually go down in search of Amanda. Like, what is that?
Do you know what did Lee do for a job?
He didn't. He was a bit of a loser.
Why was so he was in Saskatchewan to visit his family only?
His
It wasn't.
mom, his dad, it was the anniversary of his dad's death.
What did she do for a job?
She had her own business. She cleaned homes.
So he's a bit of a loser, but does he do odd jobs here and there?
I don't know. He was a bit of a loser who absolutely loved his wife and whose wife absolutely loved him. Like, her 2 brothers are like, there was no point in their marriage where it wasn't equal. They were completely in love with each other.
Is there any chance or anything mentioned that he could have had ties to some sort of mob, some sort of gambling?
And if you watch him get interviewed, you're just like, this poor dude. She was the best that he could have hoped for in the outcome of his life.
I mean, just looking at pictures of him, like,
we ain't talking trash about you, Lee. Sweet Lee.
He's got the soul patch hardcore.
But
and this is like soul patch.
Here's the deal.
Long after the soul patch.
She could have walked up those stairs, and she chose not to. And Ruby the dog, who's a black lab, who was protective.
What about drug screens? Anything come back?
Okay, so
toxicology?
her toxicology report said that she had an amount of cannabis, but that was consistent with treating her migraines.
But you said she didn't get migraines that often.
No, but when she did, they were severe enough that she probably
Did
had
she smoke
a method.
weed often?
That wasn't addressed. But they looked into her. She had no drug ties, and she had no gang affiliations whatsoever.
I'm gonna throw this out there. There's a few people out there. There's a few. There's an amount of people out there that the psychological effects of cannabis can send them into
No, for her it was
a psychosis.
It was routine to smoke weed.
It was routine
to treat her migraines. Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, did she have too much?
No,
one time
and at the point
have
that she
a
was
psychotic episode where
she thought she was being attacked.
Yeah, the whole thing was created in her mind.
Who picked up the piggy bank? She sat on her knees and whacked her head into the
everything
piggy bank.
You've told us, it seems like everything has happened in her mind. It seems like there's nobody else there.
No, I agree, but how do you fall into a piggy bank? Like, there is nothing about that.
Alcohol levels. Where are alcohol levels? No alcohol.
Nope.
No other drugs.
Just cannabis.
Look, I've been a heavy partaker in cannabis, and I have stopped cannabis and then partaked again, and it was a little too much. And
No, but I would think if
mean,
she was under the influence, her husband would have noticed at the time they were literally on a telephone call with each other when whatever happened caused her death, because they put her time of death between 7 and 7:30 p.m. on that night, and their call was disconnected at 7:10 p.m.
Wait, what time did this call start? How long had they talked before the bark, the yelp, phone call dropped?
15 minutes.
I mean, if you're starting to go out of your mind, you could probably pull it off for 15 minutes.
Yeah, but she wasn't that. Like, she was the one who kept their family in a home. She had a job. She had a business. That wasn't her. She loved animals. She loved her family. She just was run-of-the-mill, very normal, a woman who was at home one night, and that was all she wrote. And nobody can explain what happened to her.
But the cats are weird. They say cats will eat a dead body.
Here's my concern is
hours after being dead, because they know, like, they're not going to get fed any other way.
We have a dog. His name is Rome, and he's an Akita, and he's amazing. And I know that anytime I break my toe quite frequently.
She does.
Rome is there.
Walks and hits.
And if our kids are injured, Rome is there. And like, we have a son who will hug Rome being injured as comfort because Rome is there. There's nothing to explain why that dog didn't go down those stairs, because she didn't die right away. She moved and flailed and got blood everywhere. She was able to stand, and there wasn't a moment where Ruby goes, "Come on, let's get up these stairs." It's bizarre and it's weird. And in the Netflix Unsolved Mysteries, which I highly recommend, I love all of them, there are these women who are like investigators and crime scene analysts who are just like, there are parts of the story that you will never be able to explain. It's just unexplainable.
The only other thing,
that dog would have gone downstairs if something didn't keep it from going downstairs. And that woman, her brothers say she's stubborn. If she could have made it up those stairs, she would have made it up those stairs. If she didn't, it was for a reason.
The only other thing I could think of, and we've covered some things that have happened that are unexplainable, is some sort of supernatural alien type thing. The exsanguination, that part has me the most. I can't, like, I'm sure this is exactly why the cops couldn't add any notes to anything that would help the coroner with anything, and the coroner had to say this is an accident, because he could not explain how somebody died from exsanguination from cuts to their forehead.
From
the only other thing,
if it was so traumatic,
so concussion is the only thing.
There was no injury to the brain, none. Zero.
So they did do a scan of the brain,
and there was no injury to the brain. There was no fracture to the skull. There was nothing,
because you could get a concussion from some pretty small.
She's a teeny woman,
hits.
So even if she fell full on dead weight, it would have cut her skin. There's no question that it caused any injury that would have kept her in the basement. None.
It's almost as if.
And if you were attacked by somebody who was chilling in your kitchen and you had access to blood and you could smear it, why wouldn't you write their name on the wall? Why? I would.
Wait, say that again.
Okay.
I'm not.
So this notion that.
Why wouldn't you write their name?
Okay, let's say she's left in the basement and some dude is chilling in her upstairs and she can't. But there's no
You'd say,
evidence
like,
that
he did this or she did this.
there's no evidence that
you'd write
anybody else
something.
was in the basement, and there's no physical evidence to her body to suggest anything other than
All right, the
fall down the
dust
stairs.
on the
piggy bank.
not being disturbed, no fingerprints. Was there a forehead like mark? Like there was a patch.
No, but it had a
so
little
to me
tail,
that
and
means
it was pushed into
somebody
the wall.
cleaned everything and then dust fell on it.
That's not possible because it was a whopping 36 hours. Do you know what's so cute? We have a middle child.
We're in Colorado and dust falls in 36
and our
hours.
middle child watched this Unsolved Mysteries, and she goes, "Is that supposed to be a piggy? Girlfriend, those ears looks like a little sheep."
The piggy bank looked like a sheep.
And that's what she focuses. That piggy bank didn't leave the shelf.
So it was definitely hit. I mean,
but it wasn't
the only
knocked
thing
over.
with the piggy bank
You
makes
knock
sense
into
is
it,
that
so the whole face comes off and the thing doesn't fall off the shelf. The whole thing makes me just.
and the fact that there's an indentation on the wall, like that to me says somebody did fall. I think that
Right.
part is correct of what they were assuming as accidental is that somebody fell down the first flight of stairs.
There's
The
this
short-
one.
I thought you said there was a landing.
I said that's ours.
All right, I have a hard time picturing this.
Okay.
right now.
So you have like a kitchen dining room area. There's a landing and then a set of stairs to the basement.
Okay, so when you say there's a landing, like there's the kitchen and then a landing, what do you mean by that?
A square area of carpeted ground that connects to the staircase going down to the basement.
But there's stairs like down to the landing.
If there are, it's one or two. It's not a staircase
Okay.
to the landing.
So to like add credence to the accidental death, maybe she tripped down those couple stairs, hit her head into the landing where the ledge was, where the piggy bank was, that hit into the wall, fell down, and
While talking on the
All-
phone to her husband
yeah, no, it
without
doesn't.
wanting to go downstairs.
That
'cause
part
she thought it was
doesn't-
creepy.
The phone call doesn't make sense. She obviously was on the phone when it happened, or it seems like it, or when it happened, because the dog, his note of the dog barking, and then the yelp, which is weird. It's like the dog got kicked. Super weird. And then the other thing that doesn't make sense is the insanguination out of cuts out of her forehead. That makes no sense as well. It's almost like you almost can't explain it with physical presence.
Well,
You almost can just be like, something drew the blood out of her. I don't know what that would be, with demonic forces out there that can just walk in, scare the shit out of you, force you into a place you don't want to go. You trip on the way there. You trip over the dog on the way there, thus the yelp. You hit your head. Blood is going everywhere. The entity comes down with you, just watches you on the stairs, not stepping in any of her blood that you're spilling everywhere. And then like just kind of points at you and it's like, more blood. More blood. And then like you still have it there enough that you can walk towards the stairs, look up at it and be like, nah, fuck this. I'm done. I don't want to fuck with you. I'll just die. That's what the other explanation is outside of accidental death. It seems like.
well, nothing in the story about Amanda Antoni's death makes sense. There are reports of yelling and a person running through a yard, but no physical evidence of any other human being inside the home with her. There are no signs of forced entry or robbery, but there are indicators of some type of struggle taking place in the dining room, the flipped chair and broken phone, for example. The blood in the basement on the surface appears to be the result of what should be a significant beating, but the only person who can be placed in the basement at the time is Amanda, the should-be victim. There were signs that Amanda physically could have walked up the stairs, yet she never did, and a loyal dog in the house, Ruby, who never once ventured downstairs to check on her master. So with not much making sense, perhaps Calgary police took a page out of a Sherlock Holmes story. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle once wrote, "When you have eliminated all which is impossible, then whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." But I don't think even the master of solving mysteries, Sherlock Holmes himself, could connect the dots in a way to show that Amanda's death came at the hands of a trip down the stairs and a ceramic piggy bank.